But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
And then
take
when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No.
Okay? So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force? That's what that idiot talks about after viewing a thing where thousands of people are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. Okay?
Our Constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
Republicans are pushing through a big budget bill this week. So why is Trump sitting down for a contentious meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa? The answer, because racism is the secret weapon that rich white men use to distract poor and middle-class white people while they rob them blind. Trump used today's Oval Office meeting to lie about white genocide in South Africa and launched into an unhinged rant about Qatar giving him a $400 million luxury jet.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
President Ramaphosa responded. The White House wanted to ambush Ramaphosa like they did with Ukrainian President Zelensky earlier this year. But today's meeting was never really about South Africa. It was about Trump distracting his racist base while he takes away their health care. Republicans scheduled a 1 a.m. hearing this morning to take up Trump's budget bill so they could hide the details from their constituents. In addition to cuts to Medicaid, food stamps, and vital government services, the Republican bill would cut more than $500 billion in Medicare, according to a new Congressional Budget Office report. 2/3 of the tax benefits of the bill would go to the richest people, while hardworking Americans making less than $30,000 a year will see their taxes actually increase up to 21%, according to a new study from the Congressional Joint Committee on Taxation. Republicans are really sneaky about it too. A 19% tax increase on the poorest Americans would hit in 2027 after the midterm elections, but a 12% tax hike on workers making $30,000 or less will hit after the 2028 election. That way, low-income voters can blame Democrats when their taxes go up in 2029. And keep in mind, all of this is being done so that Republicans can give more tax breaks to billionaires like Elon Musk. So they need shiny objects to distract the Fox News crowd. That's why they staged this sit-down with South Africa. That's why they charged Black Congresswoman LaMonica McIver for an assault that never happened in Newark. That's why they just launched an investigation against Chicago's Black mayor, Brandon Johnson, for the crime of hiring Black people. And that's why they just dismissed investigations into U.S. police departments and ended consent decrees with police in Louisville and Minneapolis that were negotiated after the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. Toni Morrison once said the function of racism is distraction. And rich white men have been using this tool for centuries to distract poor and middle-class white people. Ever since Bacon's Rebellion in 1676, when the wealthy white planter class feared a coalition of poor Black and brown people would undermine their profits, racism has been the foundation that enables predatory capitalism in America. So while we keep an eye on Trump's racist policies for white voters over here, keep another eye on Trump's elitist policies for rich donors over there. They're both working on the same team.
Good morning, and welcome back to another edition of Let It Be Known, the Black Press's morning show. I am your host, Stacy Brown.
Peace and love, everybody. I'm your co-host, Niele Anderson, and all of those headlines that Keith Boykin talked about this morning, we will be jumping into. But first, we're going to start in the city of Houston, where George Floyd was raised. We're coming up on the 5th anniversary of his murder, and there's a lot going on in Houston. And so we thought it'd be good to just start off in Houston with a couple of guests. So joining us right now is Dr. Sharita McGee and Danetta Davis, organizers and family members of George Floyd. Welcome, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's start with George Floyd's family member, Dr. Sharita McGee. Let's just start with talking about George Floyd, who he was, and just memorializing him for his legacy.
Well, when I think about George, I think about someone with great personality, really lighthearted, very protective of the women in his life, and being a mama's boy. Those are the things that I think of immediately when I think about him.
Oh, and when we think of course, George Floyd, we think of a lot of things. We think about the groundswell, albeit temporary support, global support of Black Lives Matter. We think about a lot of things. We have to mention too that it was that situation, unfortunate situation, that really kicked this program off, that gave birth to this program, and many others. The pandemic was happening, so much was happening. Um, Today, when you think about, here we are up on another anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. Where do you feel things are right now, as opposed to, was it 5 years now?
Yep. Well, it'll be 5 years on Sunday.
Hmm.
And, it's a little disheartening because I think that obviously in the very beginning there was global support. It seemed that the momentum was perfectly set for us to really make some true progress. And I think in some areas we have, right? I mean, there have been some changes as far as, with local governments, state governments, as far as, changes with how they police and removing like the chokeholds and different things like that. So I think there definitely have been some strides in those areas, and I don't think they should be overlooked. It's really a place where I feel like we have to celebrate the wins, and when those things come along that are disappointing to us, that we just have to refocus and continue to work towards the change we want to see.
I totally agree. A lot of the change that has been made has been on local and state levels. And although we see what the Trump administration is currently doing, we know that those victories should be applauded, and local and state activists should continue to push forward. Definitely want to bring in right now Danetta Davis, who is helping organize Houston to host the Movement Festival on the fifth anniversary. Good morning. Welcome
Good,
again.
good morning.
So talk to us about what's happening this weekend in Houston.
Oh, I'm excited. This weekend in Houston, we do have the Movement Festival. It is a 4-day event. Um, uh, Honestly, we donated the George Floyd statue. It's called The Conversation with George, I want to say in 22. And I met the family. I met Dr. Sharita McGee and the attorneys and the other family members and all of that, because in order to do something like that, you have to have family buy-in, and we got to know them. So every year we've been doing in Houston something around either the anniversary of the death and around his birthday in October. And so this year, Sharita and I were talking, and she said, it's coming up on 5 years. And we really need to do something special, because she and I talk about it all the time. We don't want to forget. It's something we promised that we would not do, because we know if you forget, things can repeat. And so we came up with the idea of the Movement Festival. It is reminiscent of a change, which is what we know we need to do and what we saw right after the death. It was a great place for everybody to be. And slowly, people start to drift. So we said, it's Memorial Day. Unfortunately, that's when he lost his life. But it actually puts it in place. It gives us the background and the backdrop when people are, again, still, right? A lot of people are off on Monday. And so on today, this morning, the report card, where Sharita, this is one that she spearheads. She talks about progress. And before we've, in panel discussions, try to, keep up with that part. So Tesla Figueroa, I'm sure you guys know her, they're active. And this panel, but we have local NAACP director and others that are on the panel. And she will do a keynote. And then there's a panel discussion. And then later on this afternoon, there's a play, a socially conscious play that ties in with the conversation. That's Thursday, Friday, we have a pop-up. We want to grab some of the younger, this thing has to be passed on. You have to intentionally talk about things. So there's a popular place. It's a strip where there's a lot of African American businesses. It's a little mini Black Wall Street, but it's a place where there's a lot of progressive things going on. The students are out there, so we set a pop up, and we got food trucks. There's a food truck park near the historic newspaper, the Forward Times, and so it's sitting right there, and they will eat, and he's going to have a DJ, and they'll go down there's a whole strip of just restaurants and businesses and things like that. So what we did was we asked them, okay, when they say they're with the Movement Festival, they get something off, some discount, something, whatever. So people are encouraged to go and visit that area. It's in the historic Third Ward, if you know anything about Houston. On Saturday, the En Blanc in the En Blanc brunch is what we're calling. It's a white party, but it'll start out. It'll be really fun. And then there's a concert. We've got local bands, there are folk here who are known for the jazz and some for R&B and things like that. So we wanted people to feel good and understand we have to celebrate the wins, just like she said, and then come together, talk, have conversations, and enjoy. And then there's a big line dance contest. Houston and Texas has been really big on that. So we got 300 line dance folk coming in here on a bus, and they're saying we're going to break the record and just have fun today. It'll be there's always going to be someone to remind you of the reason for the season. We say the party with a purpose, but we want it to be a really nice time. It's Memorial Day weekend, and then for Sunday, which again, deep and we're steeped in our history, is always gospel and doing what we do on Sunday. So we started off with gospel push, and then we have local ministers who are very popular here, Remus and Mia Wright there, and we thought we'd make it fun. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you know the Marcus D. Wiley. He's a comedian, but he does a lot of things. He talks about his dad's a preacher and things like that. So his strength is clean comedy, and so we'll have that going on for them. And there's some local folk that'll be here, pastors, NAACP again, and some local politicians to remind us about what we're doing, what we can do more, and just kind of talk about the state of things. And of course, the statue is literally across the street from this event. And so once we after we laugh a little and cry a little, we'll walk across the street as a group and go over to the statue and do a balloon release. That is, I think, where we pay our respects to George, and there'll be other folk in the park. So we're hoping that everybody will join in, and this will be a wonderful occasion. There's one more thing we do, and it's a soft opening. There's a play. You guys, I don't know if you know the story of Camp Logan, but it is the story of Memorial Park, where the Black soldiers had this horrible thing happen at the end of their stint. They were here protecting back in 1917, and it was a riot. A lot of folk lost their lives. A lot of Black soldiers were sentenced to death and hanged, and some horrible things. But what we learned in 2024, all of those officers, all of them were pardoned. All of the Army, United States Army, pardoned every one of them last year. And so it's a celebration, but a lot of people really don't know the story of Camp Logan and the 24th. So we have a soft premiere of that, where we had a local presentation that we filmed and did use a local musician to do a score. So it's going to be a fun time. And since they're off on Monday, we felt like, they could come and hang out a little longer. So at 6, we'll be doing that. So it's full 4-day week, so that people will remember. We know we want to make an impact. Let's just say that, right. So that when we talk about it again, it'll be something to talk about. So
yeah. Absolutely. And finally, for me, Dr. McGee, again, 5 years. You tell us 5 years later, what is the biggest thing today? I mean, you have Keith Ellison, actually it's kind of two-parter, because Keith Ellison, the Attorney General there, has come out forcefully again recently, saying that if Derek Chauvin is pardoned by the president, that he still owes the state 20 years or whatever it might be. To have, and I'll stick with that question instead of giving you a double barrel question, but to have someone like Keith Ellison, who is certainly seemingly have been in the family's corner from minute one. What does that mean to you personally? And you can speak for yourself, you can speak for the family, but for you personally, to have someone like Keith Ellison still standing 10 toes down, what does that mean for you?
Well, it means a lot to me, and I actually got to know him quite well. He actually, before the trial and everything, he actually made a trip to Houston and came to my home with his team and talked about what it is, what this trial sort of meant to kind of, be sensitive to what we were going through. And that sort of set the tone of our relationship with him, and letting us know that he was going to work very hard to seek justice for us. So it does make us feel good to know that there is someone who has consistently been behind us and is going to continue to support us as we face challenges like, the discussion about potentially pardoning Derek Chauvin. Can't say that I'm surprised about anything that happens, but realistically speaking, we just have to stay focused on the things that we have control over. I live in the place where I call the circle of influence. I don't waste a whole lot of energy on things that I can't change. I definitely take solace in the fact that he does owe the state of Minnesota the 22 years. So if he does end up getting pardoned, that's a good thing that he does. Am I happy about it? No. I'm very disappointed because I think the message that it would send is that at least that there is some part that doesn't feel like that Derek Chauvin is responsible or should be held accountable for what he did.
Now, you're a panelist on the forum on Saturday. What do you plan to bring to the conversation?
Well, the panel discussion is actually later today.
Oh, later today. My apologies.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I think what I bring to any discussion about this is someone who, slept in the same bed with George, who can talk about the impact that it had on a personal level. And then at the same time, I can also, try to let people know that there is something that every single person can do to be a part of this process. And that we all have different gifts. We all have, different areas that where we have our strengths. And I'm encouraging people to tap into that, whether it be volunteering, or being in mentorship programs, or engaging with community policing opportunities. There is something that you can do, and we need everybody in order to continue this fight.
Mm, mm. All
Awesome. Well,
right. Yeah. So we're talking
appreciate it.
about the Houston is hosting the Movement Festival. Kicks off tonight, as a matter of fact, with the panel discussion. Is there a website that you could give us? Is it live streaming so people can tap in across the country? Ms. Davis?
Okay, it's not live streaming, but well, some parts of it may be, but right now, www.kditc.org is the website, and it's got all the information there, all the times, and there's plenty of time for people to still come and participate. Even vendors, we still have some room. So.
Okay.
Nice. Well, as Nancy Wall says, this sounds like a really nice tribute to George's legacy and even some fun for the community. We appreciate you, ladies, for sharing this, and let's see what the future brings, right? So thanks for joining us.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for
You're
having us.
welcome.
You're welcome.
So it's just hard to believe it's just been 5 years. It's been 5 years already.
Mhm.
Like, wow. And the sad thing is, like, we still don't have the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed. But the good thing is, and we can go on and on with John Lewis Voting Rights Act, et cetera, et cetera. But the good thing is that you have folks like Dr. Sharita and Ms. Davis and others putting something like this together, because least we forget. They want to take away all of our history. They want to try and remove it, erase it. But they are saying here with this event, one of the many things it seems to be saying is, we will not forget.
Mhm. For sure.
Yeah. So as we move on to our hot topics of the day, and we saw at the very beginning the video of the president ambushing the South African president. Again, it's really about distraction, because as Keith Boykins noted, what we saw this with the South African president. While that's going on, they're taking away everybody's benefits. And this what happened with I'm so glad that President Ramaphosa is not was not totally appeared to not be totally caught off guard the way Zelensky was when he came to the White House, um, because Donald Trump pretty much said it himself, right? He said, actually, where's my plane, or something of that nature. This guy is Neil, help me out here, because there's some things that I'm just not gonna say. I shouldn't say anyway, but go ahead. This
Yeah.
meeting is horrible.
Yeah, it was atrocious. It was very disrespectful. Like Keith Boykin said, the function of racism is a distraction. So that's what it was yesterday, a distraction.
Yeah, to have him there to do that, it's just it's so disrespectful to other world leaders. So, RNG says the president of South Africa went out like a sucker. Well, he didn't go out like Zelensky. Well, you know what? I tell you what, let's just leave it at that. It's a distraction. It's disgusting what goes on there, and really not much more to say about that. To ambush them like that, to say that the white South Africans are being killed and taking their lands, and it's really something to get black folks upset here in the U.S.
For sure.
So. So the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division said it was opening an investigation into the city of Chicago after Mayor Brandon Johnson's comments. So again, free speech to them is not free speech. But not only that, this is that DE&I situation, at least so-called DE&I situation, because what Mayor Johnson did was he put a spotlight on all of the black officials in his administration. Um, so he got a letter from the assistant attorney general, who said that they were going to investigate into whether Chicago is, quote, engaged in a pattern or practice of discrimination because because he has so many African American staffers.
Mm. Yeah, once again attacking black folks. I mean, that's like, I think that's probably number one on their agenda. Project 2025 and the Trump clan attack black people and then deport.
Then the board. Yeah. And this idea of, this is threatening to criminally investigate elected elected officials. It's a continued pattern. And
Hmm.
then you see him sit in the White House and talk about discrimination against white South Africans. It's infuriating. Speaking of the Justice Department, they also moved yesterday, and we just had the conversation with George Floyd's cousin and the organizer of and one of the organizers of the events that's taking place in Houston. But the Justice Department has moved on Wednesday to cancel settlements with Minneapolis and Louisville that call for an overhaul of their police departments following the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Of course, those killings became the catalysts for nationwide racial injustice protests in the summer of 2020. So they Niele. Yesterday you had J. Anthony Brown. We need all the comic relief we can get.
Yeah, for sure. I think just speaking to the family, one of the things that speaking with them earlier, it just brought me joy because in the midst of everything that we're talking about, us as Black folks, we know how to survive. We know how to find our joy. We know how to keep pushing agenda. And so, what you see happening in Houston this weekend is Black joy, and you see organizing, and organizing is going to be so important as we navigate through this Trump administration. What we do on a local, what we do on a state level is going to be way more important, as we're seeing, as to what's happening on Capitol Hill. We see they're still trying to push this big, beautiful bill through. You know, all the
Passed
stuff that's
yesterday through the
happened,
House.
everything that's happening on Capitol Hill is not as beneficial as to what we see that's happening on local and state levels. And so, as we commemorate the 5 year anniversary, we can't lose sight of like his cousin was saying, all of the victories from a state and local level. And so we just have to keep pushing forward. And thank God for people like we brought up Keith Ellison, who said, okay, on a federal level, let him pardon him. Because guess what? He gonna have to come back over here to the state where they waiting for him and do that 22.5. So
100%.
that is a victory. And those are the things that we have to look for in such a dark time.
Well, you mentioned the bill. Just so folks to know, late last night, overnight, middle of the night, thief in the night, they passed this bill that 71 million people now, because they passed this bill, and if the Senate concurs and passes it as well, will be in jeopardy of losing vital services, including a disproportionate number of Black Americans. They passed a sweeping bill that contains $736 billion in cuts to Medicaid, huge reductions to SNAP, and of course, this will raise the debt ceiling. Now, these are people talking about Doge and finding waste, fraud, and abuse, and overspending of the government. This is going to raise the debt, not the debt ceiling. It's going to raise the debt by $4 trillion. So you're doing all of this to actually add more debt, but you're doing this to the least of them, the least of these, as they say, right? The seniors, the children, the disabled, those who can use a little bit of a help. The National Bureau of Economic Research found that the Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act saved at least 27,400 lives between 2010 and 2022, and states that refused the expansion missed the opportunity to save another 12,800 lives. So it's like, let them die. Let them die. And nearly 1 in 3 Black Americans rely on Medicaid. So you talk about the cruelty of it all. This is as cruel as it gets.
Oh, 100%. And I think this takes us right into some of our more headlines and trending topics where Democrats are calling out Republicans for cutting taxes for tanning salons,
And
Stacy,
salons.
while eliminating rural hospital beds. Now, the proposed tax break was revealed, of course, in Trump's one big beautiful bill, as they're
Which
calling it.
passed the House late last night or
Yeah, you
early this
mentioned
morning.
that.
Mm-hmm.
The excess tax on indoor tanning services. Now, they were originally implemented to help fund the Affordable Care Act. That's why these tax
Of course.
increases for these tanning salons happened. And they wanted to discourage the use of indoor tanning because of all of the health problems that happen. But of course, we know tanning salons or what makes Orange 45 and 47 or so there you have it. So they chose to cut taxes for tanning salons instead of helping rural Americans. And the most important thing is the devil is in the detail. And there are so many more things like this in that bill that are going to impact Americans. So everybody who voted for Trump, you're going to get what you voted for right now.
Well, they're getting it. They're certainly getting it. They've been getting it for a few months now, and now they're going to really start to feel. And I really, again, their opening video with Keith Boykins, I enjoyed how he broke it down. When a lot of people are going to start feeling this after each election, right? After, not before the midterms. After, not before the 2028 election. After.
Mm, mm. And
That
look at that tan. Look
yeah,
at that
look
tan.
at
Look
the
at his face. Look at it.
It looked like a catcher's mitt.
He probably and the reality is he probably has one of the contracted salons doing something in the White House. You know
The
what I
face
mean?
is the face that referred to Bruce Springsteen as a prune face.
Mm, mm, mm. And speaking of white folking, the owners of the Nottoway plantation say they want to rebuild. In a statement, property owner William Daniel Dias says, "My wife and I had nothing to do with slavery, but we recognize the wrongness of it." Now, the 64-room mansion that was built by enslaved servants was presently repurposed for a luxury resort and quote unquote a site for history. If you remember, it was destroyed last week in a fire that officials believe was electrical. So it wasn't set. The ancestors said, "Burn, baby, burn." But
And
and the fact that for him and his wife, now he's a lawyer. William is a lawyer. His wife is a judge. He says slavery, we had nothing to do with slavery, but we recognize the wrongness. But I could probably guarantee that his ancestors had a lot to do with slavery or slave catching. Now, I'm
without
saying
question,
allegedly, but I'm pretty
without question.
sure if
Wait,
my
right.
ancestors were slaves, your ancestors were what? Slave catchers or slave masters?
Yeah, and listen, it's a safe bet, like you said, allegedly, but we say that just because I guess we supposed to, but because we don't know 100%. But come on, do the math,
Mm.
do the deduction.
Really, really. So we'll see what happens if they'll rebuild and we'll keep track of that story. Now the president and CEO of CBS has stepped down. Wendy McCone said in a memo, "It's become clear that the company and I do not agree with the path forward." Now, her departure comes as CBS parent company Paramount is seeking FCC approval to complete an $8.4 billion merger. And it's also as Paramount is in talks to settle a $20 million lawsuit with Trump on CBS's 60 Minutes. They're being sued because of an edit with an interview with Kamala Harris. And we know that the executive producer stepped down a month or two ago from 60 Minutes. And so once again, Trump is controlling media. And this is a great example of it.
BBC, CBS. I mean, he is attacked and is trying to permanently get rid of PBS and was it NPR? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this is some heinous stuff.
Yeah. It seems like just as we thought things were kind of settling down, it's like this week they just ramped back up. And it feels like he just got into office and all of the chaos that he was creating. Um, it's again this week. It's just impounded. And I even thought yesterday about the federal workers. We can't
Mhm.
forget what's happened to them, the impact that is still happening to them, looking for employment. You know,
Yep.
Eventually the unemployment will run out. And so all of these things are beginning to boil over. And so we can't forget what was done and what he's doing now. And it's just going to come to a crazy head, unfortunately.
Yeah, you
Um,
mentioned unemployment gonna run out. What's gonna happen too? When we see, we talked about the bill that they passed, and how the pressure on the states, the financial pressure that this is putting on the states, is going to get to a point where you won't have state unemployment insurance anymore.
mhm.
Even
And
though
they
you
just,
pay into it, just like you pay into the other things that they're taking away.
yeah. Like cause and effect. I mean, a lot of people don't really think about that, but for every cause there is an effect, and you might not see it now, but it's coming for sure.
It's-
And in other news, Janice L. Mathis, Esquire, who was appointed executive director of the National Council of Negro Women in 2016 and has served as general counsel, is retiring. So the organization made the announcement this week. She was a great leader. We had Dr. Siobhan on earlier, who is now the executive director. But it's always nice to give people their flowers and appreciate them while they're alive. So definitely appreciate the work she did over at the National Council of Negro Women during her tenure. And I'm sure they're going to give her a fabulous retirement party.
as they should.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And moving on into some news on loans, pay now, buy now, pay later. Anybody use those firm loans? Well, Costco is now offering a buy now, pay later option through Affirm for certain online purchases between $500 and $17,000. So
Wait a minute.
that's
Wait,
interesting.
what at Costco costs $17,000?
Well, you could buy some TVs. Like if you have a business, you can buy some TVs. You buy a
No,
couple of
what
things.
something costs $17,000?
Well, the limit, the cap is
Okay.
17,000. So you could buy up to. So
Okay.
I mean, you buy a couple TVs and you go there when you first walk in, you get your internet, you get your phone. It is easy to rack up
You run up a
17,000 in the
right,
front of the
right.
store.
Wow. I
And
haven't
then
been in the Costco. I can't even remember the last time I've been in a Costco, but
oh yeah.
and I like Costco,
You
but
can't go into
that's
Costco and not spend $300. You know what I'm saying? Get you a
that's the
couple
minimum, huh?
TVs and some crab and some king crab leg. I mean, it's easy to
That's
rack
it.
it up.
Okay. Mm.
Meanwhile, another buy now pay later company, Conair, is saying they
Klarna.
are Connor. What is it? What is it?
Klarna.
Klarna says they are $136 million in debt due
Oh
to
gosh.
customers not paying back their loans. So this is another company similar to Affirm. And typically, if you're on Amazon or you're in these other places, you have these two options to pick from for buy now, pay later. Well, one is thriving and one is over $136 million in debt because people are not paying back the buy now, pay later loans.
So why are they giving them people money then?
Because they have an expectation that they're going to pay back. They didn't know that before they accepted the loan. But I think
I mean, that's a lot of money to be expecting.
Right. But I think the bigger like this puts on is U.S. consumer debt hit a record 18.2 trillion. And that number is only going to rise. We talked about federal workers, unemployment. It's just going to continue to rise.
Listen, Orange G says he is not doing the buy now, pay later. He says he's gonna save up and then buy because he's saving for his JJ Fad tickets. So there you have it.
I've used the firm once and it does help. It does work. You know what I'm saying? Pay 6 payments. I've used it once, but
What's like the interest rate?
I can't remember. It did say it. The interest rate for the Costco is, I believe it's like 5%. The cap is 36% for the Costco thing. But I mean, as long as you pay it on time, sometimes there is no interest incurred as long as you pay it on time. But it also comes every week or every other week, which is the tax that becomes hard. You're like, oh, I could pay that $120 every week or every 2 weeks. And then you add on your rent, you add on your groceries, you add on your gas, you add on your electricity, and then it's like, ugh, every week I gotta pay that? Every other week I gotta pay that? That's when it becomes difficult.
So Dr. Joni is asking, is this the equivalent of layaway at Kmart, et cetera, from many years ago?
No, because you don't get your stuff. It's different from layaway because with layaway, you have to wait until you pay it to get your goods.
Okay.
With this, you get your goods and then you pay as time goes on. But like I say, it's like either every week or every other week.
So Costco is doing some things.
Yeah, well, everybody is. But see, layaway was, I'm going to get all this stuff. They're going to put it in the bag in the back. And then I'm going to pay it off. And then I'm going to get my goods. With this, you get your goods and then they got you. Because you got to pay it back. Because with layaway, think about it. If you didn't go back and get your stuff, no loss. With this, you got to pay it.
You got a loss.
You
Okay.
Gotcha. You got it. You got the goods. Now we can go across the pond to where Chris Brown has been released. Yes, he's released on a $6.7 million bail. It's high bail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It actually was $5 million, but because our dollar is so crappy, it was actually 6.7.
Okay.
It was $5 million here in the US, but it's 6.7 in the UK.
What's his charges again?
So after I was gonna get to that, after it was
Oh, okay.
reported he was arrested last week for an alleged nightclub assault in 2023, where he was supposed to hit somebody over the head with a bottle. Now Brown's Breezy Bowl tour is set to kick off just 2 days after his trial begins. His first show is scheduled on June 15th. Okay. In Manchester, UK, the same city where the alleged incident took place. And so
Wow, $6
he
million for that?
$6 million. And he tweeted, from the cage to the bowl.
Wow. He said, Mike V said, I used to have the 5 finger discount. I don't know what that is, but okay. But Chris Brown, $6 million bail? That is
6.7.
something.
That's almost $7
6.7
million
million.
dollars
That's almost
because of.
7, yeah.
Hmm. And
Oh,
but I
wow.
think it's also interesting that it was 5 here, but look at the value of the dollar.
Come on, son. Come on, son.
Look at the value of the dollar.
Chris
How
Brown better
far
stay out
we've
of trouble.
fallen.
This young man, he's got to stay out of trouble. Yeah, by the way, speaking of Chris Brown too, there was a great, and he was mentioned in the interview. It just reminded me of a great hour and a half long interview on the Breakfast Club the other day before yesterday, I think it was, with Chuck D and Curtis Blow, and they talked about the history of hip hop and the history of people like Bobby Brown and Chris Brown. And I mean, it was very compelling. It was, and to see Charlemagne and DJ Envy, really soak it in, and they were soaking in this great knowledge from Curtis Blow and Chuck D. It's a great watch. I don't normally watch the Breakfast Club like that, but it was like something that was being said at the time that Curtis Blow was saying that really caught my attention, and then I started watching it, and I couldn't stop watching it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and then beside the fact that Envy and Charlemagne was really not interrupting and letting them talk and letting them express some things, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I saw clips of that too. I mean, it's always good to have intergenerational conversations.
Yeah.
Because you get a little of today, get a little of yesterday, and then you meet somewhere in the middle.
Yep. Yep.
Now there's another term that I learned within the past couple of days. It's called hobosexuals. Have you
Oh
heard of a
Lord.
hobosexual?
No, I've never heard of that.
So hobosexuals, they're on the rise. Let it be known, family. Now, a hobosexual is someone who enters into a relationship with the primary goal of
Not
having a
like a
place to
freak
live.
off or nothing, right?
So a hobosexual sexual is someone who enters a relationship with the primary goal of having a place to live rather than a relationship.
What? I have never heard of this.
So it's not a new term. It's pretty old. I did a little research. Now the new study shows that the number has increased over 50% in the past decade due to housing shortages, economic pressures, and financial difficulties. So as a
It's sort
single
of.
woman, I
Uh-huh.
appreciated this.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say it sort of makes sense now as you break it down like that. Especially now, I mean, with all of the financial pressures, but why call them hobosexuals? Because it sounds like,
Because
okay,
that
you
is a
said,
hobo. That is a hobo. You
okay,
know what
no,
a hobo
but why?
is.
No, I do, but it's the sexual part because it's not a relationship, right? You just sharing a house
No,
or something
it's
with
they
them.
get into these relationships to have a
Okay.
place to stay. So like you have homosexual, heterosexual, a hobosexual is somebody who gets into a
I can't.
relationship. You get
Do you
it?
see what Greer is posting back there? Uh,
Yeah.
so okay, so you are having sexual relations because in exchange for living there.
Yeah, basically you get into a relationship with somebody because you need a place to stay. Instead of
Okay.
just it being a roommate, you woo somebody, and if they're
Nancy
like, "Come
Walls says
on."
shacking up. You shacking up.
But you could shack up with somebody and it's mutual, it's relationship, is love. But the hobosexuals, intentionality is to have a place to stay. It ain't really about you. and then you
She
may get the
said,
benefits, you may get the loving, you may get the,
right.
but they're not there for that. They really there because they need a place to rest their head. That's a homosexual.
Patricia Jackson said, "Bum with benefits."
There you go. Bum with benefits. This is the sexy
Wait.
term.
Stop it. Greer says you got to come out them draws if you ain't paying rent. I've never heard of this.
That's bum with benefits. Bum with benefits.
Right.
Call it.
I've never heard of this. I have never heard of this, Niele.
I hadn't either. And I was like, this is interesting. I think the Let It Be Known family might find this pretty interesting. I found it interesting, and it was a warning sign. Look, a guy who enters a relationship just for a place to crash. I mean, and females could be hobos too.
Swin said, what the what? Listen, you got, oh no. And Sinead said, we all know, I don't know a hobosexual, do we?
I've met a couple of hobosexuals. It didn't get far, but when I saw this, I'm like, okay, I get it. And it's a warning, beware, because as we talked about a lot today about how the impact is coming.
No.
It's gonna be a lot of hobosexuals out there, y'all.
Okay, so Justin, sports medicine says that would be a herbo.
No, hobo. It's not gender specific. It is hobosexual. Like hobo, a hobo, a bum.
Oh my gosh. You know what? We didn't do a black quiz. We didn't have to. Because I would never have, I didn't know this term even existed, honestly.
I don't think a lot of us did, but it does, and it makes sense, okay?
Oh,
and I'm calling them out. Don't come over here being no hobosexual.
Well, but you said you could appreciate it as a single woman.
I can appreciate the knowledge because knowledge is power. That's what I can appreciate.
Wait, go back to the top, the headline of that article. What did it say? Hide your apartments. The homosexuals are hunting.
And
what?
This was back in December 2024.
Oh my!
And it said the new study in the past decade. So this term has been around for a while.
Okay, so a homosexual comes knocking on Diddy's door. Is he being charged?
Don't go there because there's a lot of gray area there that don't we're not calling her that.
No, I'm not calling anybody. I'm just saying if that would have happened, can you be charged later with
but
trafficking or something?
I think that a woman could be a homosexual too. It's not gender specific. It's not.
Oh no, but these, all of the apparently they put up a picture in the court of all the people who were in these so-called freak offs. They all men. It was just men and Cassie and Diddy. So I'm wondering, if a homosexual.
Let's keep the Diddy trial out of this. Let's just keep it over there.
All right, keep it out of it.
Let's keep
all right. I'm just so floored by this term.
But that's interesting that's what comes to mind for you when you think of a homosexual.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking of in terms of all aspects since you brought it up, because I've never ever. And she said, what did Greer say? She said most of the time it's a man.
I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that because a lot of females.
Is there stats?
But think about it. A lot of females pick ballers because they want to be taken care of. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these girls, they pick rappers. They want basketball players because they want a certain lifestyle. So they hobos too.
Okay, so look at that. Go back up, Greer. 3 signs. What's the 3 signs? It says 3 signs your partner might be so you might be with somebody who's a homosexual. Right. Avoidance of personal responsibilities and lack of motivation. Your partner rarely helps with finances. Things seem to be, quote, moving fast. Wow. So there's a whole bunch of information about this stuff. I
just made this up.
I thought you made it up. Yeah, I thought you were making that up.
It's like during tax time, you start seeing the memes about tax time where the guys they'll go get, just whatever because it's tax season. Well, it's hobo season too. They hobosexuals too. Men,
He said this.
men.
Is this true? Neil Quinn said this might be in a lot of black homes.
Ooh, well, look, all the pictures that Greer just put up was of white people. Okay,
I
I see
know.
no
I
black
think
person.
he might have been referring to the three signs.
Oh,
And Justine Sports Medicine says you heard it here on Black Press USA. Loving it.
homosexual. Okay,
Oh my God.
knowledge
That
is power,
apparently,
y'all.
yeah, apparently we could have had a whole show on homosexuals because it's
Ho-
a very interesting topic all of a sudden.
And we're running out of time, so I'm still okay. For 3 days, I've been trying to get to this New Zealand story. I'm gonna
All
save
right,
it
let's
for
get to it.
tomorrow. You want to get to
You want
it?
to get
Do
to
we
let's
have
do it.
time? Let's get to
Do
it.
you?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
let's go into it. So New Zealand is trending, y'all, for their ban on names. Now, names that are being popular here in the US, some of the names that are banned in New Zealand are like king, prince, princess, along with others related like duke, majesty, royalty, queen, and crown. Now, in 2024, 1,100 US parents named their newborn king, while 11 New Zealand parents who applied to call their newborn king were asked, give it a second thought. This is what they were told by New Zealand. Give it a second thought, stated John Crawford Smith, who was a principal advisor of the Department of Internal Affairs in New Zealand. And he further said, we continue to urge parents to think carefully about the names because names are a gift. So in New Zealand, you just can't name your child anything.
Look at those names. The names that have been banned.
Lucifer, sweet sex fruit, fab. What?
Name that children that. Sex
Man,
fruit.
make
Lucifer.
somebody. I mean, Hennessy,
Yeah.
Tanqueray.
Wait, but those are the names like that. Those names ain't up there, Niele.
I'm just saying we do that. We name our kid. But so
Caesar.
what are you guys thoughts about that? Should governments be involved in what people name their children? Don't let Donald Trump see this. Don't let him see this.
Oh my gosh.
He gonna ban Barack. He gonna ban Obama.
Oh my Biden.
I mean, but
Joe.
Chad, do you think that government should be involved in naming your kids, or should they stay
Oh
in their
my
business?
gosh. Right, because he said that the New Zealand official you quoted said that it told them to think twice or whatever.
Yeah, think about it. Yeah,
Think,
give it a
give it
second
some more
thought.
thought.
Give it a second thought. He said we continue
Oh
to
my
urge parents
gosh.
to think carefully about names. Names are a gift.
RNG says as long as they don't ban the name OJ, he's good. And gosh, Justin Sports Medicine is still on the homosexuals. He says I aspire to be a homosexual and win the Nobel Prize for it. But
Yeah, I like that hobo, huh?
yeah, yeah, they can't let it go. Neither can I. But you know, I listen. What people name their children is their business. But I do wish people would. Some people would reconsider some of the names that they've come up with as well. But that's their business.
That's their business. If you want to name your child Hennessy, if you want to name your child Tanqueray, but I mean, this also brings in a deeper question because you could look at this on so many levels. When you look at over in Africa, names are very intentional. And your name means something. But then when you look over here, if you apply for a job and your name is Lakeisha or Tasha, people look at those resumes and they automatically identify you as a certain race. So names are really important, but I just don't know if the government should be involved in the choices parents make for their kids.
Well, MB says our government is telling people they can't use certain words. So that is to your point that don't let Trump get wind of this, right?
Right. Because he'll,
Wow.
Well, those are your there you have it, folks. That's all I got.
Wow. All right. Whew. That was a good one. Okay, so we're gonna revoke somebody's black card today, and this guy he has turned out to be one of the saddest cases ever. I mean, this guy has no shame anymore. Leo Terrell, despite his position in the Department of Justice, Leo
Mhm.
Terrell, of course, he's former Fox News contributor, as many other things. Someone who I used to know, maintained an active social media account on X, and he retweeted a post in which Trump was quoted as saying that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is, quote, not Jewish anymore. And then, but here's the point. Leo goes as far as it says that Trump has the ability to revoke someone's, quote, Jew card. Um, but he's also said the same thing about black folks. He believes that black folks can be deported. He's made no bones about it. Black Americans. Um, Leo was a guy who had different views about 25 years ago, when I knew him. 25 or more years out in LA. I mean, we used to chat, we used to talk. This guy was as at least trying to give the impression then, as black as they come. When I say that, meaning as I should say, as militant as they come, all for the cause, for black folks, for black rights, etc. And now he is totally on the total other side of the spectrum. The guy is a miser. He's everything that you want to put on a negative scale. He is absolutely insane, and money, I guess, is the key to all of this. Fox started giving him some money, and now Trump is giving him money, and this guy is just a disgrace.
Well, it says Leo 2.0, so maybe that's the 2.0.
That's
And I
2.0.
and I think it's also important to highlight as of early as 2025, over 25 individuals with ties to Fox News have been appointed to various positions within the Trump clan administration. 25
Isn't that something?
and
Isn't that
counting.
something? And counting, right?
And he's one
And
of them.
how about your homegirl that leaves ICE? Didn't know what habeas corpus
Habeas
was.
corpus was.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well,
Uh,
basically, they're trying to change the narrative of what it is. Because I saw a clip yesterday of Steve Bannon trying to
mhm.
reframe the concept of habeas corpus and saying that the president does have the power to do it when we're in a constitutional crisis. Yeah, we are in a constitutional
They
crisis, but
created
it's
it.
because of him. You know what I'm saying? And so, what they're trying to do is reframe everything and make it and will it towards what they think their ancestors intended when they wrote it. That's what they're trying
You
to do.
well, I can't remember exactly. You made the comment a few days ago about ancestors, about their ancestors and our ancestors. Well, do you recall exactly what you said?
Yeah, they're living up to their ancestors' wildest dreams, just as we
There you
live
go.
up to ours.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
that's what it is, a will of the ancestors.
Yeah, that's to me, folks. I believe when she said that and said it again, they're living up to the will of the ancestor. That is pretty deep.
Yeah,
It's
it's
pretty deep.
deep. And I thought about
My,
that house, that mansion, the
hmm
Nottoway mansion, and how they said that it was an electrical fire. I was like, that's
Yeah.
supposed to be a refurbished luxury resort now to
Okay.
where you can have weddings, you can go stay there, and then you can get a little um um uh what do you say? How do you say it? History alternate history facts, on the tour because they try to
That
dress up.
video.
Yeah, they try to dress up slavery like it wasn't that bad. And so you have this fight. It's a will of the ancestors. And I'm telling you, if I'm gonna be the physical flesh, the walking and talking flesh, I'm a double down on my ancestors just as they double down for theirs.
That chick in the video, she that was giving the tour at that plantation. The slaves here had it good, she said.
And guess where them talking points came from? It had to be approved by the owners that said, what did he say? Uh we don't condone slavery.
Ooh, that's the one.
There it is.
That's the one. Yep. Wow. Moving on to some black facts. Um, David says that's the entire point of strict construction in the law. What was its original meaning? We know where that puts us. Yeah. Okay, so some black facts. On this date in 1966, Bill Cosby becomes the first Black American to receive an Emmy for Best Actor in a dramatic series for his role in I Spy. 1966 on this date.
Do you think that Emmy is worth any money right now?
I think all the Emmys are worth it, and something like that, regardless of the what people might think about the man behind it, it's still the first black first Emmy for a black person in a dramatic role. So yeah, I think if somebody was to auction, it's like OJ stuff. Remember, they was auctioning his stuff, and it was pulling it, even though it was scandal written. It was pulling in a lot of money. So yeah, I think that Emmy would probably be worth a nice little penny.
Okay. And on this date in 1967, poet, playwright, and columnist Langston Hughes passed away in New York City. One of my favorite poems is it's just a clip. Docile Negroes, meek and mild. God forbid the day they change their mind.
Wow. Wow. And you see it, notice that like the headline there, Negro poet, back then in the 60s, and civil rights was still going on, civil rights movement. Those newspapers, they wanted to use a different word to replace Negro.
Hmm.
So bad. It's just horrible.
And
Uh,
we embrace Negro. Negro was acceptable. It was the
mhm.
ER that wasn't.
Right.
But
100%.
yeah, yeah. And so it's like the evolution of black folks in America, from Negro to black to
Colored.
African American. Like, what do you want to be called?
Hmm. Yep. You remember Smokey Robinson a couple of years ago, long before his current scandal, raised some noise when he said he didn't want to be known as or called African American. And a lot of people was like, you know what, not Smokey, needing his black card revoked. But I mean, if you heard his explanation, so there's a lot of people who give that explanation. They're like, I've never been to Africa. I'm not from Africa, et cetera, et cetera. This is my, but his thing was, this is my country just as much as it's the European. So they don't
Right.
call them European American. So he kept, he said, they say white. He said, why not just call me black?
Yeah,
People
or
had
call me
issues
an
with that.
American, or I'm an
Or an
American.
American, right? And I think that's what he was saying. To call me an American, but I don't think he was, you know, I don't think he was disowning his blackness at all. I think he was just saying, look, why we have to be the outsiders? We're not. This country, we built this country.
Right,
So,
right, right.
so anyway, just an aside. Our black-owned newspaper of the day. We're gonna eat some crawfish. We're gonna go and get on the grill there with Orange G. Is the New Orleans Tribune. The Tribune is a New Orleans-based contemporary publication rooted in uplifting and prioritizing Black audiences near and afar. The modern-day Tribune was founded in 1985 by Dr. Dwight McKenna and Mrs. Beverly Stanton McKenna. It was named in honor of the historic New Orleans Tribune that was founded in about 1864 by Dr. Louis Charles Roudanez. And it is in the spirit of Roudanez's Tribune that the New Orleans Tribune proudly serves the community today. So check out the New Orleans Tribune. And RNG says, my hometown paper. So I'm sure he gets not only the online version, but the physical copy. So check them out online. And if you are in New Orleans, pick up a copy of the New Orleans Tribune.
And go get me some Drago oysters. And
Drago
don't forget
oysters.
and don't forget the French bread so I can dip it in the sauce.
Good night.
All
Okay.
right, moving on. Banner story today at Black Press USA. Audit reveals Maryland botched dozens of death in custody rulings. We talked about that earlier this week. But as you can see, anything that's happening in Black America, we have it at BlackPressUSA.com. So make sure you tap in a couple times during the day to find out what's happening across the country.
Yeah, and tune in to BlackPressUSA.com later today. We should have a very big update on the Target situation. So check out, among other things that are going on, but we should have that updated as well. Apparently, the Target's earnings report has come in, and apparently, their CEO has acknowledged to investors that the Target fast and the Target boycotts and the selective buy-in campaigns are truly hurting Target. So let's see if yeah, exactly. So let's see if he does anything about that the right way. So we'll see.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Nikema Levy Armstrong, we had her on, activist out of Minneapolis that helped start that Target boycott, will be joining us tomorrow to give us her thoughts on that as well as another activist, Toussaint Morrison, who was boots on the ground in 2020. So we will continue to uplift the legacy, the life, and the movement of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd.
Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.